Hello, everyone. My name is John Berglund. I'm one of the channel managers here at Microsoft. And today we have a pretty exciting agenda. We're talking through the energy industry today. We're focusing today on the midstream. Microsoft has made a huge investment within our energy industry. And we have Haney Solomon, who's America's business leader, talking through some of the business challenges, and along with the COO, Brandon Taylor from OneBridge. So this is going to last approximately about 75 minutes. We've set up some time for Q&A at the end for the last 15 minutes. But otherwise, if you we are recording this, you will have an opportunity to be able to review this recording after we're done. Uh, in addition, if you had some coworkers that were not able to join, they will be able to see to join it afterwards and be able to see through the video. With that, I'm going to hand it over to our America's Business Leaders, Haley Solomon. Haney, off to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, John, for the introduction, and thank you everyone who was able to make it for us, make time for us today. As mentioned, my name is Haney Solomon. I'm the America's Business Leader for Energy and Sustainability at Microsoft. So I'm part of a worldwide team that's being created primarily to work with our energy customers across the entire value chain, oil and gas, power and utilities, and mining, as you undergo your own journey for digital transformation, the energy transition, and sustainability. And we work very closely with our partner community. And today we obviously are partnering very closely on the messaging and the capabilities we bring to bear with our great partner, OneBridge, where we jointly build solution to help you address the challenges you face in your particular part of the industry. But we also, our team works very closely with Microsoft Engineering to ensure that we are not only developing the capabilities, but the roadmap based on what we hear is needed from you as our customers, as well as our partners in terms of the capabilities we need to be building. So very happy to be sharing with you over the next few minutes how Microsoft is thinking about our overall strategy, how we are building solution, what are the capabilities we bring to bear. And I'm going to also highlight some of the use cases and the examples. I'm not going to be able to cover the entire portfolio of capabilities, but I think you're going to see also from OneBridge a comprehensive value proposition and a portfolio of capabilities that addresses the particular challenges in the midstream sort of business, as well as the pipeline integrity and the challenges in this space. Moving on to my first slide here, hopefully it's building for you. I wanted to just quickly highlight one of the ways Microsoft is looking to formulate our own strategy. As we talk to our customers across the entire value chain, we find that there are four primary topics that come up in almost every single conversation. When we participate in boardroom conversations, when we talk as simple as architecture, those are four key drivers. The first one is around the market dynamics. And this is an area that's becoming very, very relevant most recently. Obviously, last year when we experienced lower, almost negative commodity prices, to now, the prices are rapidly rising and hopefully stabilizing here soon. We are seeing that this is being driven by significant fluctuation in the political landscape, as well as the demand supply and the disruption that happened with COVID. And many of the companies we deal with, not only are they trying to figure out a way to provide a resilient supply chain and a way to be able to manage this sort of fluctuation in the business, but many of them are also evaluating, especially in the midstream, new ways of looking at their overall business model, maybe with the introduction of hydrogen or even managing carbon and associated carbon capture and sequestration, and maybe reallocating or repurposing some of their infrastructure to manage carbon. And as you can see, if you're going to be transporting a hydrogen or carbon. Sometimes the pipeline integrity and the questions and what you do from a midstream standpoint has significant implications. That comes up quite frequently. Another area that has come up is around the policy and regulations. As companies start looking at the overall landscape, global landscape, they obviously are seeing that there is maybe a significant shift, maybe lower demand in oil, but maybe increased demand in natural gas, which is now being perceived as one of the immediate priorities for us to be able to manage the energy transition, and how natural gas is going to be a significant component of the portfolio of any company moving forward, at least for the foreseeable future. And the last one pertaining to market dynamics we are seeing is how customers are diversifying their CapEx versus OpEx portfolio, and potentially looking at investing in areas where there is maximizing the opportunity and returning shareholder value based on how they are looking at their CapEx OpEx mix. The next one that has come up in many of the conversation is around cybersecurity. And I think, the Colonial Pipeline attack is just one example, but there are many that are happening around the globe. And Microsoft is being approached to figure out how can we help address this challenge, considering our security portfolio and what we are doing. And I will share this in a minute, but recognizing that 1 of 4 breaches, exactly 28%, are motivated by cyber espionage. 38% of them are nation states. You can see right away that the opportunity is massive, but the challenge is also massive to be able to respond to this. And no one company alone can address this particular challenge. But what actually adds complexity to cybersecurity is that many of the customers we talk to is that the device and data ubiquity between IT and OT, and obviously historically there was an air gap between IT and OT, but now with a proliferation of devices, that gap is not as relevant anymore. And in addition to that, with all of the automation and the devices deployed in pretty much any OT landscape, many of them may not have the latest security updates. Many of them may not have the latest operating system. So how do you address a brownfield scenario where some of the legacy infrastructure is not maybe the most visible when you're looking at it from a SOC, security operating center sort of environment? And then we also have many conversations around ESG. Many customers are coming to us and asking, how can we have a better understanding of the carbon footprint, reporting accuracy and reduction? How can we maybe have better visibility around the water preservation? There is significant demand from a society and the investors. And how do I balance my portfolio with improved visibility and benchmarking? And we all know with some of the recent decisions during COP26, which is happening in Glasgow, the United Nations conference right now, there is a significant mandate around the reduction of methane by 30% by 2030. How do you measure this and how do you act on it? And this is something that we are seeing many of our midstream customers are coming with this kind of question regarding the monitoring and the abatement associated with methane. And then the last one, and it's by far one of the most pressing one, is the workforce transformation. I think we're seeing a significant number of folks choosing to retire. Some people are maybe are limited in terms of their ability to move around because of COVID. But we are seeing also a demand for attracting young and talent, and in particularly in the digital space. I think one of the areas that many customers are coming to us for is retooling. There's a workforce, particularly around data science, cybersecurity, digital thinking and design thinking, artificial intelligence, ML. And in a survey recently done by EY regarding the workforce survey, they highlighted that many of the executive surveyed said that almost the majority said that 60% of the workforce needs to be rescaled, and it takes about 9 months to bring somebody up to speed, especially on the digital technology side. So worker safety reskilling, the reduction of field workers at the right location, and the remoteness and the talent shortages are huge problems that the industry is facing right now. So how is Microsoft engaging and addressing this? We prioritize all of our capabilities in those four areas. How do we help you maximize and optimize your existing assets? And we refer to this as operate for the future, your entire supply chain, health and safety, and being able to connect your assets and operations to give you the visibility you need, whether it's maybe the energy management, and we know that the reduction of energy consumption means that you're reducing not only cost, but you're also reducing emissions. How do we give you the tools to be able to transform your workforce and address the remote nature of the operations right now and improve the safety and the skill set and improve knowledge sharing between the different players that you have on your team? And then as you start moving towards the transitioning to clean and reimagining energy, whether it is as simple as being able to manage emissions and the environmental performance and set up the benchmarks and be able to meet some of the, not only society, but the demands of any sort of regulation like SASB and others. But also as you start looking at your business model and looking at maybe the transformation and how you're evolving your business model, maybe getting into hydrogen, or like we discussed earlier, CCUS and others, that's when we start actually working with you and co-innovating, leveraging our platform. You bring the domain expertise, and we co-build those sort of scenarios together. How are we enabling the entire Microsoft portfolio? It's really all grounded on our investment in Azure. And arguably, this is the largest cloud footprint of any cloud provider out there in terms of our capabilities across the globe. We have almost more than 200 plus, and we continue to grow in terms of data centers around the globe. It's about 60 Azure regions that we cover, and obviously with the redundancy you would expect and the uptime you would demand from a cloud provider. And all of them are integrated in a way to give you the scale and the power where the Microsoft capabilities can provide. So as you look at modernizing your infrastructure and moving some workloads to the cloud, whether it is as simple as reducing your energy consumption, improving your emissions, or just modernizing your footprint, this is a capability that everything we offer you is built upon. When we take a look at how Microsoft is aggregating those scenarios together, this is just a simple architecture diagram to show you that one of the biggest problems we hear from customers is my company has evolved over the years. I have a lot of on-prem solutions and cloud solutions. I have multiple applications. I have multiple security components. And that sort of fragmentation in the data and the application portfolio becomes a major challenge, not only from a security standpoint, but also the integrations associated with it. And that actually puts a significant load on the IT teams to be able to glue those pieces together. So one of the things Microsoft has been doing over the last several years as we build our cloud is to actually take this gluing and the capabilities and bringing it together into a one cloud experience in a way that allows you to focus on what are your other priorities and what your domain expertise provides. And we take the plumbing off of your plate as much as we can possibly do. But we also provide you with an open ecosystem to be able to plug in great solutions from like OneBridge for your specific needs, but also any other legacy technology or even sometimes competitive technology that we recognize that we need to be able to blend into your IT landscape. And you can see from the left-hand side, we drive partnerships with many of those data sources so that we help with the data ingestion and automate it where we can. We give you tools to automate areas that are manual today. Once the data is ingested, we run the analytics and the artificial intelligence, and we give you the tools to be able to act on it with like predictive intelligence and some of the pre-configured first-party solutions as well. And that's the direction Microsoft is taking and where our investments are going. Moving forward, we are seeing the cybersecurity area is an area where we are having many conversations. And historically, Microsoft has been viewed as a big IT security provider. And many of you who have deployed our Office 365 and Microsoft 365 capabilities may be already leveraging many of the solutions we offer from a security standpoint. But a few years ago, Microsoft also acquired an OT security solution called CyberX. So now we are able to come to you with a value proposition and a portfolio that allows you to bring the IT and OT security together. But one of the unique ways we are able to bring a differentiated value proposition to help you with the overall security posture and landscape is that slide here, to be able to show that we are collecting data points and intelligence on a massive scale, which gives us an opportunity to be able to run the artificial intelligence and the machine learning to anticipate problems, be able to see where there could be some solutions that are potentially problematic and act on it. And this not only allows us to manage a secure portfolio for our own operations, but we are able to extend this to our customers as well, based on the volume that we are collecting on a global scale. Moving on, I think this is an area where I would like to highlight where Microsoft is taking our own IoT security. So we focus on partnerships, the likes of Schneider and many others that are collecting IoT data. We are ingesting this data. We are collecting and managing the data with, and I know some of you may have seen, and you will see this from OneBridge, the idea of Azure Hub, which allows us the aggregation of the data. We also perform the analytics and then help you with the delivering of insights to the decision makers to be able to act on it. And that's an area where we are investing and we continue to invest in around our security portfolio. So you can see this is an area that if you have not had a chance to take a look at what Microsoft is doing around OT security in particular and how it integrates into IT, it's an area I encourage you, because it's a major investment. In fact, we have about 3,500 engineers that are working purely on our security portfolio. The IT OT security is an area where we are seeing not only just significant demand, but significant success as well. So this is just some examples of what we are seeing our customers are engaged on, whether they're a transmission system operator that is actually at a national scale that is working with us, collecting data points from SCADA, to others as well that are heavily investing in some of the capabilities around just collecting data from multiple OT data points. And you can see here a note from a CISO. In the past, we didn't have the visibility, and now we do. And we are obviously spending quite a bit of investments in our energy sector with the oil field companies around drilling operations, optimizing, and obviously helping reduce any sort of downtime pertaining to these type of security problems. But we also, one thing I want to highlight here is that we also integrate with other third-party providers such as Splunk and others to be able to give you a comprehensive point of view. One last thing I'm going to mention about the OT security really quickly here is that we also recognize that we are able to help with customers that still have a portfolio that's running on premise. We also allow you to run agentless, which means that you would not be required to update all of your devices with the latest software and security. So we actually meet you wherever you are in your security posture today to be able to help you have the visibility you're looking for and be able to transform your OT security. Very tied to OT security is our investments in IoT. And I think this is just a slide to show how Microsoft is being recognized as a leader in the IoT platform. And I think what you're going to see from OneBridge today is just one example of how a great partner like OneBridge is taking the capabilities and the investment Microsoft is making in the infrastructure to really bring powerful solutions in this situation in the midstream business. And it's something we are proud of, and we continue to invest in, and we continue to drive new partnerships. This is also another example of what we are doing with the work we are doing with IoT devices. I'm just building the slide here again, the connection, the collection of the data, and you're going to see this more today, the performance of the advanced analytics and the delivering of the insights. This is one way to take a look at how we are actually connecting IoT with cybersecurity. It's a portfolio, it's a massive portfolio of capabilities that really gives you what you need to be able to not only collect the data, ingest it, make the necessary analysis, but also act on it, like with our Dynamics connected field service, where it has a powerful scheduling module to be able to dispatch field crews to act on a finding, whether it's a corrosion, it's a leak, or any sort of problem. You're able to automate this process and minimize the manual effort associated with it, but also operate in a powerful and a secure way. As I wrap up, I wanted to just share a couple of quick examples. This is work we are doing with Shell, where we are working with them on the concept of a digital twin, and we jointly built 47 applications to allow them to optimize their carbon footprint and energy production. Again, collection of the data, giving them a visibility to the physical world in a virtual environment, and being able to do what-if scenarios and monitor and be able to act on it in a powerful way that would have taken them potentially years when they are looking in hindsight on what actually has transpired. This gives them an opportunity to find the data in a timely fashion and act on it. One interesting remark is that we always talk about how prices have gone down on maybe renewable energy and so on. But interestingly enough, the pricing on the sensors and devices has actually gone down the most by up to almost 90%. So many of the customers we deal with today are finding that the capital outlay to install these type of devices to give them the real-time data and visibility they're looking for is not as burdensome as it used to be in the past. Another example we are working on is ExxonMobil, XTO. This is part of a project we refer to as Astra. It's in the Permian, where we are working very closely, not only with ExxonMobil, with Chevron and Pioneer and many others, to be able to have a visibility to what's happening in the field, not only from a carbon emission standpoint, but from an operation optimization. And this is just a simple architecture diagram connecting data points from the oil well to obviously some of the gas compressors and the pipelines, and in some situations it might be the pneumatic controllers, or in some other situations heat exchangers, a variety of data sources, and again the same process, the ingestion, the analysis, and giving you the tools to be able to act on the findings. One exciting area that we've been helping quite a bit along the entire value chain actually is our connected field service. But one area of connected field service, not just the finding and the dispatching of a crew to go do a repair, but we have the concept of remote assist, which took a ton of momentum during the time of COVID, where you are able to bring expertise from one location to remotely help somebody else in another location. And some go as advanced as the HoloLens, which is our virtual devices, but it could also run on a typical Android or an iOS device, that you're able to walk somebody into the process and be able to show the schematic associated with the diagram or the work that they're doing. And this has helped us tremendously, especially in the time of COVID, and many customers are embracing these type of capabilities. And this is my last slide, and I think this is the area where we are seeing also great momentum, is around the idea of low code, no code, where many customers have either a manual process today, a need to rapidly deploy an application and build it. And what we are seeing with our Power Platform is the ability to quickly build application that gives agility to the line of business, but at the same time grounded on the same data governance and the same security that the Microsoft platforms offer. And this is an example from Schlumberger that actually have in excess of 10,000 users. They built 600 plus applications, and they have it deployed across multiple countries. And more importantly, they are bringing value to the business in a matter of weeks rather than months and years like it would have typically been. So this is really how Microsoft is thinking about engaging and supporting you on a day-to-day basis. This is just a glimpse of some of the capabilities we bring. But more importantly for today's discussion, I would like to introduce Brendan Taylor, who is our COO from OneBridge. This is a partner we are proud to be partnering with, bringing great credibility and capabilities to the midstream business. So with that said, I'll pass it to you, Brendan. Thank you.
Thanks, Haney. That was super great, and thanks. We really appreciate the Microsoft relationships. We've been partners for I think now over 18 years. So that was really good background, and probably going to lead right into the presentation that we're going to do here at OneBridge. So hello everyone. To Haney's point, thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Brendan. I'm the President COO, and with me I have our VP of Sales, Dan Tipton on. We're a in the cloud SaaS software company built exclusively on Microsoft Azure. Our mission is to predict pipeline failures to save lives and protect the environment with the assistance of data science and machine learning. And what we'd like to do today is basically kind of take you probably more tactically. We've been in the midstream space now for quite a few years, and we really want to kind of just walk through kind of some of the industry trend. First, who's OneBridge? We're probably less recognizable than Microsoft. So give you a little bit of a background about us, and then kind of the experience that we've seen within the current industry and the trends that we're seeing. A lot of them align exactly to what Haney just covered. And then really tactically kind of the process challenges. And then we want you to be able to leave here with kind of like solutions and where some, this digital transformation from an organization, from your organizational perspective, where the business impact may be. So that's really kind of what we're hoping to cover today. And we're going to leave about 10 minutes for Q&A. So a little bit about OneBridge. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of OneSoft, public company, been in business for 21 years, trade on the Toronto Venture Exchange and the OTCB board in the US. As I said, we've been working with Microsoft for 18 years. OneBridge launched out in 2016. We were accepted into the Microsoft Incubator program. If you're not familiar with that program, it's an accelerator type program where I think they looked at 720 companies from around the world. They whittled that down to 9, and we were one of the organizations that were selected, and the sole organization around oil and gas. And it was their very first data science and machine learning incubator program. So you got to meet, go on campus, all of that. They brought in all of these energy companies that Haney's talking about, and we launched out of there with our solution in January of 17. So our solution is called Cognitive Integrity Management. You'll hear me refer to it as SIM as we go through this today. But today we have over 289 active users representing over 100,000 miles in our subscription. And that's typically piggable transmission pipe. Total mileage is I think, close to 150,000 now. And these users are typically corrosion integrity engineers sitting in integrity management. So we really focused on that use case, end-to-end, enterprise-wide integrity management. So you're going to see a lot about that as we go through this. So there's a lot of trends in the industry, but before we jump into that, we probably have pipeline integrity or midstream folks on the call, and so we wanted to give anybody who isn't kind of a sense and set some expectations on what it is. Skip the slide a second. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm on the wrong. I jumped ahead. A lot of trends. We wanted to kind of give everybody a sense that we could focus on the business side. There's a lot of new PHMSA regulations that are coming out, a lot of shared learning across our customers around best practice gig criteria. For this presentation, given that we're on with Microsoft and we're talking about the technology stack, we're trying to probably slightly more IT focused, so digital transformation, business continuity, workforce transformation, which is similar to what Haney just did, and then there's OpEx, CapEx kind of conversations, and cost savings is super important as we have those conversations as well. So we wanted to be able to make sure that everybody kind of gets a sense on what's kind of happening, at least that we're seeing from a OneBridge perspective. But before we jump into those trends, it's really important for us to kind of share some context around what integrity management means for a midstream pipeline operator. And this data comes from PHMSA. We have a link, and I think that everybody will be getting access to that. But we looked over the last 20 years, and the industry is general back to kind of the OneBridge mission in life is very similar to what the industry is there's a push to get to zero pipeline failures. The infrastructure is super critical for our country and worldwide. Most of the infrastructure, I think there's 2.7 million miles of pipe, almost 660,000 of it is piggable. Half of it was installed pre-1970, right? So it's aging infrastructure. In 2020, there were over 500,000 leaks. We've been very fortunate to start working with some of the innovators and early adopters within this space, with both missions to basically try to reduce that number to zero. So that's really what we're focused on when we talk about digital transformation. How do we do all of that stuff and still save money as we transition through the process here? So digital transformation for us, we actually launched our very first version of SIM in 2017, and you got to go, it doesn't seem that long ago, but at that time, we were the very first cloud solution out of 4 of our first 5 customers. And really what that meant in the entire enterprise, meaning that, that trend is now seen like every deal. So, back then a SaaS agreement was a new, and when we delivered our first SaaS agreement, I think it spent 9 months in legal, just kind of going through the SaaS agreement. Today we see SaaS agreements versus MSAs. We're seeing traditional true IT questionnaires that are geared towards cloud versus on-premise. That's happened extremely rapidly from that perspective. Just as an example, just recently we closed one of the largest pipeline that owns over 90,000 miles of pipe, just signed up, and they're starting their digital transformation with us as we go. So most exciting for us though is once this process starts, it seems like it can be overwhelming. And we have some, use cases to help kind of people on this call to understand kind of what those steps look like. But once it starts, it's really is about transforming integrity management, right? And we're seeing that at our customers. It's not only, just technical, it's actually their processes. A lot of manual process, a lot of steps, a lot of formal processes. We have our customers are actually changing their IMP, their integrity management program. They're rewriting some of the documentation around the solution. And then really what's exciting to us is the people, the evolution of, as Andy said, right, we're starting to see a lot of evolution in that space. And once you get along the curve there, it's quite exciting that from that perspective, there's actually an intensity that kind of starts happening around their legacy systems. Once they onboard and they have SIM up and running, they actually start looking at other pieces of the organization. Hey, can we bring this in? Just as an example, we're currently underway with multiple operators to not only now just handle the core assessment planning all the way through DIG, threat management, integrity compliance, but risk management and corrosion management. So we're starting to see a rapid buildup on this digital transformation. Business continuity, just to kind of put this in perspective as well, is we could spend a lot of time just on this, and we know that we all just went through COVID, so I'll talk a little bit about that. But more fundamentally than that, what we have noticed as we started going and the shift that we're starting to see is that to date, over 80% of our customers were utilizing Microsoft Excel as the primary tool to facilitate key business processes with integrity program when we first engaged with them. Now, in relation to cloud computing, as we start this journey, Excel is very difficult to scale. It's not very accessible. It represents a lot of business risk to the organization. Mostly introduces high probability of human error. It's extremely difficult to roll up at the enterprise level to make decisions. So that was really fundamental. A lot of these processes have literally been around for decades, and we'll talk about that as we talk about workforce and what we're trying to accomplish there. But that's been disruptive, is to basically get this into, COVID really proved that kind of in real time, unfortunately, is that availability is super critical, right? So what was really exciting about this is once you saw many of these, the uptime is huge, so 24/7, no disruptions on the uptime. All our customers and the integrity engineers that our customer needed beyond just the field work, meaning, excavations and running the tools, all they needed was a modern browser and a multi-factor authentication app, and they were working, right? In fact, we received, as people started coming back into the office, they wanted to stay home, so there was, some disruption there, but management actually communicated to us from multiple organizations that they actually viewed that productivity went up, and their transparency and integration to the overall business decision was super valuable by having a SaaS solution. And we've seen more uptake just from that result alone. If we talk about the workforce transformation, there's a saying in the industry when I first started that it consists of 30-30 bookends, meaning that there's employees that have been in the industry for 30 years, not many employees in between, and then a bunch of 30-year-olds, young engineers joining. And for that, that's been super imperative from a OneBridge perspective, because the study came out that within the next 6 years, 50% of the workforce is going to retire. That's pretty enlightening for us. We've actually, in the last couple of years, seen that that accelerate pretty dramatically just in the customers that we work with. We've seen a lot of retirements, we've seen a lot of downsizing, all of that's happening. But that's important from a OneBridge perspective, and really what we're trying to capture is to take the individuals that have been in the industry for 30 years and institutionalize that knowledge into the solution. And we're doing that. We call that within OneBridge shared learning. So that's where we'll take, as an example, and there's many examples on where we're taking that knowledge and incorporating it into the solution, but best practice DIG criteria. We'll take that knowledge, institutionalize in the system, release, so operator A and SME that we're working with there. As we release that, operator B and C and D automatically get that knowledge, and then they'll take that and expand on that, and then operator A gets that knowledge back. I mean, that's really the beauty of cloud in general. So really what that does, if you look at this chart, is the young engineers coming in already are starting, at 80%, right? So it's built into the application, and they can just, it's modern, they're familiar with it, they're tech savvy, all of that just happens. And then they really start looking at placing a weight on basically finding new things to basically build in so we can round out and the cycle can repeat. One of the things that we've noticed and why we think that's working is because our customers are actually using SIM as a recruitment tool to bring these young engineers into the organization, and also weighing candidates who have experience within that. So we're really hopeful that over the next period of time that we can get the majority of that institutional knowledge into the solution. That's really one of our key objectives internally. This is by far the most pressing trend that we engage with on prospects is cost savings. There's a very explicit corporate objectives at the top that basically anybody that tries to bring in a new SaaS solution or new technology in general, they have to show net cost savings. So one of the things that OneBridge has done over the last couple of years is we really focused on that. And what's encouraging about us is that when we got into the Microsoft Accelerator, Microsoft, later informed us that one of the reasons that we got into the Accelerator is because based on their experience, having been involved in other industries that had already gone through the digital transformation process, that they believe that the solution that we're building could be disruptive to the industry. And in tech world, when you say disruptive, it's kind of Uber to taxi kind of disruption. So that's one of the things that we've been looking at. So today, if you look at across our customers, we're averaging about a 10x cost savings, and that's from what they do today. And we've been working on this for a few years, and it's iterated quite a bit. What we've done is created buckets: assessment, planning, integrity, compliance, dig management, then mapped those business processes. This is where it's very tactical from an integrity management perspective, directly to SIM. And so what that's done is allowed these customers to really zero in on each one of these buckets and these metrics internally, and then quantify them. Doing less tool runs, identifying potential threats. How can they do less digs? We have white papers on that. Audit ready. All that we know that they spend a lot of time in PHMSA audits, and we want to reduce the amount of time. It's difficult to, and we think the audits are going to go up more. But ultimately, we want to optimize the resources so they're doing high value engineering. And that really frames the trend for these operators as we go through this process. They're very explicit metrics. The ones that are super easy is if you have internal systems or if you're using third party, that's very explicit, super easy math. But there's some of these that are much more difficult to quantify. And so that's what we've tried to do, and then we've iterated for the last few years. We've actually created quantifiable math, right? So we've hidden the kind of variables here, but what we'll do is we'll take this, give it to an operator and say, okay, you plug in the numbers. We've done it as we go work with you, but go ahead and put your conservatism in. We know what your business process is, how many digs you do and all of that, how much they cost you, and you plug that in. And what we find is when they come out of that, this is where we're averaging. So they're able to basically go to management and say, hey, we've aggregated all of this data, and we can show 10x savings if we run SIM. I mean, that's really what's kind of driving adoption into the solution, which is super important. Although all of that previous trends drive change, and those are great as you kind of go through the transformation, but to successfully experience and implement it, there's a lot of process challenges. And what we did at OneBridge is we sat back and we were like, what are the top 3 challenges? And as a data science machine learning company, that really has to spend on enterprise data, right? So, and we'll talk a lot about that. Change management is something that you can't neglect. And then he's already talked on cybersecurity, but it's still a pressing thing when we get to the IT side of things. This diagram really illustrates the current process challenges that we see. PHMSA is, it seems like every week there's new regulatory increased workload that's being placed on operators. They're applying what we think is a pretty significant pressure on that related to operators. And then the data itself, it's very siloed from what we've seen. As I mentioned, there's a lot of Excel sheets in play. But you have a GIS system, you have an asset management system, you have risk, and these are all separate systems, typically legacy. Within where the systems are on-prem applications requiring security patches, so it goes back to that kind of Azure security model that you saw, and it's required continued investment. It's not necessarily that they've always been maintained and modernized, so there's an uplift there that needs to happen. And then most pressing is that the incidents are still basically occurring at roughly at the same rate. So that's really what we're trying to solve as we talk about process. And it takes a long time to kind of work through that. So when we look at enterprise data, this is where we start kind of get quite excited, quite frankly, is because we've had the opportunity over the last several years to work with some pretty innovative customers and onboarded them. And as part of that, we've seen a fairly representative sample of what legacy systems were in place and processes that we've replaced as we've onboarded them, right? So as a result of that, being a cloud solution and application, we've literally analyzed tens of thousands of pipeline. I think we've ingested the last count over 6,500 inline inspection from tool vendors. We're vendor agnostic, tool agnostic, so we've really learned about that data quite a bit. currently store over about 65 million features in SIM across our customer base. And then what's really exciting about that is as customers start using it, they aggregate their own internal metrics. So as an example, in 2018, Phillips 66 with data that they'd already had, they'd ingested and then ran in SIM, identified some threats that they dug. And if you looked at their numbers, they saved anywhere from 25 PHMSA numbers to 50 million. Super exciting to us. In 2020, they actually awarded API Distinguished Award for having 0 failures, so 0 releases. So, and they'll, tell us that we played a huge instrumental role in that happening. Another operator just, tactically, saved them over $1 million by just eliminating, outsourced work around ILI alignment and growth analysis. And then, we like to say that we're Excel killers, right? We try to eliminate Excel. And one operator alone, we've eliminated over 3,500 Excel sheets, right? And what that just keeps growing as we take on more and more of their work. It's really quite frankly a small sampling of what digital transformation allows at the tactical level. It really empowers the employees to actually go ahead. We got rid of these 3,500, can get rid of these 1,000, and that identify new areas, and the cycle just continues. So there's a ton of white space that's in our roadmap that we're starting to attack from a data perspective. One of the areas, and Haney showed this on IoT in our innovation lab right now, we're starting to play with Azure Hub and determine if we can basically bring in that sensor data and bring it into this data set related to ILI and corrosion and risk and all the other data sets, so we can get business intelligence and analytics. But the one thing that, as you go through and you start looking at this is it's very disruptive. Technology and this process can be disruptive. So we can't overlook the change management, right? So some of these existing processes have literally been around for decades. Some of the employees at the organization helped personally invested and built them. So it makes change a little more difficult. One of the, I think if we summed it up from just an important guideline from a OneBridge perspective and what we give guidance when we engage with the customer is that, first at the top of the chain, you got to have management that has both approval and budgetary authority, basically be engaged from the beginning. And they have to have some level of setting strategic objectives. And there has to be clear and continuous communication on why we're doing this, because there's typically a larger picture here across the organization on why this is being done. And then second, picking individuals to execute both at the project management and the early kind of end-to-end, what we'll call the end-to-end process. So they can basically kind of be the cheerleader internally to basically help everybody else understand, okay, this was our process, look how much better it is now, and really help people understand that. But we do find that, sometimes culture just isn't there yet, even though we've seen it and actually overcome it. One of our customers actually brought in the project management office, and they brought in change management workshops where they did training, really started talking about digital transformation and what that's going to do for the organization. And what's really exciting about us is that the people that went through that process and they now are in production actually are some of our biggest cheerleaders when we go around to industry events. They're the ones saying, this is what it did for us organizationally. It's visible across all the departments, all of that. So, but it is something to be considered or to consider as you start the process, is to think about the change that it's going to inject on the organization. And we have tools to help do that. We just put this slide up. Haney showed pretty extensive security model and the investment that Microsoft's making, but we know that like the latest ransomware attack is very top of mind for a lot of pipeline operators right now. But Microsoft's investing a tremendous amount of money on security. And this is just, it's probably outdated. That's a slide that shows basically all the certifications that Azure maintains, right? And it's constantly changing and new ones are being added all the time. OneBridge specifically did a bunch of research on cloud platforms before we started development of building SIM. And we landed on Microsoft mostly because of this security investment that they're making. We still believe it's the best platform for building B2B SaaS enterprise level solutions. And the stack and all of the additional stuff that comes, we can just easily integrate that into kind of a one platform for a midstream pipeline operator. So this slide is really is really held true from a OneBridge perspective. We've had this slide for some time now. It's really, the resource and talent requirements go up, and then the business impact as you start this digital transformation and the impact on the business. And as I mentioned, we've been really fortunate to work with some pretty innovative and early adopters within the midstream oil and gas space for the last few years. As you start at the bottom, it's very typical for employees where they can see what SIM does to be worried that they might lose their job, right? But what we find is they actually get repositioned to do what they really came out of school for, is basically high value engineering. And ultimately they become the highest advocates of the solution because they don't have to do that mundane, work in Excel, try to filter and all of the stuff to do. They drop the file in and they're instantly able to start doing engineering on the work, which then allows the whole solution to scale across the organization, because it's now just not in integrity, it might be in corrosion, and it might be in operation. So it really starts scaling. And I think for the first time, what SaaS has done at our customers, because they're used to on-premise, hey, we've implemented and then 5 years we got to do an upgrade. We're on a weekly or a monthly cadence right now. They give us feedback. We're very customer driven. A month later, that feedback shows up across all of our customers on a typical basis, right, on average. So they're not that speed at sometimes too fast. So we have to be really cognizant of how fast we roll this out. But as the ecosystem grows, we find that the quality and the features functionality becomes higher quality, and it actually reduces the risk of the operator, right? And really what that's done is led them to new capabilities. So when we meet with them, the end-to-end integrity program is quite good, but can we bring in risk? And we're working with operators on, can we bring in corrosion management for both external and internal? So those capabilities will then expand the footprint and more of the organization, and the cycle will repeat. So really what we're trying to do is, as you look at that and you look at what Microsoft's doing from a tech stack perspective, we're using a lot of Azure resources, but they're out at the front getting like IoT and the Azure Hub and all of that done. And now we can plug that data into this data and not do it very significantly. Examples are that they have a Azure to SAP connector. We don't have to worry about that. From a OneBridge perspective, we just put it within the solution. Now we can connect to SAP. IoT Hub, we don't have to worry about building the middleware. It's done. Yeah. So we really get to leverage that tech stack pretty significantly. And really what that means is that the company did a study here back in 2015. So they looked at what's going to happen, the value at stake in this era of new automation. So this is from 16 to 25, they're projecting out. And really what it's doing is taking, okay, what is digital transformation going to do for the oil and gas industry at a macro level, and with some pretty big numbers, and more importantly, not just to the industry, but to society, right? So you can see that, 220 billion sitting at the number size, 100. So this is talking about, how do we put in hydrogen in and all of these different things within the infrastructure. So this gives us kind of a sense on what the numbers look like. What we're really will watch and follow is, as we move through time here, how close they get to it. And then finally, before we jump into Q&A, we're going to leave 15 minutes for that. If you haven't started your digital transformation, we've been working with customers and prospects now, and COVID was very instrumental in kind of simplifying that process to help them understand, and mostly to kind of get to the point where they can figure out, is digital transformation right for you, and very tactically focused on integrity management within your organization. And so we've come up with what we think is a pretty minimalistic, low impact to the organization. It's a few stages. Timeline's really short. There's no investment for an operator to participate. And then ultimately what you get out of that is a cost savings. We take those formulas, we apply those to your organization and can show where, SIM and digital transformation in general as a starting point organizationally for all the things that we just talked about, both from a Microsoft and a OneBridge perspective, kind of gets you on your path to start that process. And you get that cost savings as well as kind of an onboarding proposal as you kind of go through the process. Dan, I'll let you weigh in if you have anything that you'd like to add, or otherwise, John, I think we're probably back to Q&A. We'll open it up for 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, Brandon, thanks. Just real quickly on the production trial or the test you just spoke of. Very simply, OneBridge offers what we call a production trial, which actually takes a bit of the operator's own ILI data for ingestion into SIM. The trial takes about 3 to 4 weeks from start to finish. And at the end, as Brandon mentioned, we present back to the operator the results. We show alignment over time. We show a tracking of the anomalies and visual of all the anomaly growth through time. And we also use the operator's data to calculate cost savings of implementing SIM. And this would have to do with elimination of Excel spreadsheets, optimization of your dig management program, third-party vendor streamlining, things such as that, that fits into the overall cost savings. And then we group that again with the commercial proposal. So if there are any folks out in the audience attending today that we have not spoken to concerning doing a production trial, please reach out to us, let us know, and we'd love to do the work with you. And I'll send it back to you, Brandon.
Great. Hey, Brandon, this is John.
Yep.
Just have a couple questions that were there, but I just reminded the group that they can post their questions in the chat, along with if you would like to get back in touch with us, you can respond back to us via email as we send out the stream. So you'll be able to have the stream at the end and to be able to review it at a later time. But the first question is comes from, let's see here. How has the shared model improved predictability, and what have you seen, and what are the security concerns?
Yeah, so first on the security concerns, so we do single tenant per operator, meaning what that means is each operator has their own Azure subscription within Microsoft, either in their subscription or we can do straight up SaaS. Microsoft Azure has a way to do either, really is indifferent to us. So we don't share data across operators. That's super important. We've learned, from day one that's like a golden rule. But what we do, since we have a bunch of data science and machine learning, is that as we identify dig criteria best class, so we used, I think 2 years ago, have 95 conditions. We call those conditions in SIM. I think we're up over 270 different conditions now. And so as we onboard new customers, the way that works is we gap fit their IMP and any company specific type dig criteria kind of conditions to what's already out of the box. And then any gaps that happen from that perspective, we build into SIM, and then every operator gets to use those. That's how that library just keeps growing. And then over time, our data science team has started, we have some operators that are actually going to PHMSA as the industry starts moving more into performance-based integrity management versus kind of prescriptive. They're sitting down with PHMSA based on the data that's in SIM, because we're tracking end to end, not only the conditions that PHMSA says you have to dig and you go dig them, and then the ones that you decided to go dig, and communicating that what you're having us dig are not the things that are causing releases, right? You need to change the regulations, and they're using the data that's coming out of SIM to help kind of guide that. So our intent is, as we build more of that intelligence into the solution, there'll be some real data driving kind of what's happening in the industry versus just what may or may not be happening.
All right,
hopefully that
excellent.
answered both.
Yeah, I think so. The other question is, we have one One question, which is more of a statement, is just looking forward to seeing it in action. For those that are interested in seeing more of that, we'll be sending you out some information to be able to do a proof of concept. And then, what are some features that you will see in the future? Have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so today SIM is really in integrity management. What we call is the SAP of integrity management without the cost or the deployment process, right? In fact, our just to give you an example, what we mean by that, we've spent a lot of time on onboarding. The latest customer that we signed up just maybe a little over a month ago has already loaded 60 systems and is already doing alignment and growth. It's SaaS, so that's how fast you can do things within the solution. It handles assessment planning. So which tools am I going to run? When am I going to run them? Which vendors am I going to use? Which technology helps with that whole process on both, cathodic protection, so CIS data, ILI data, hydro, direct assessment. So all of that is done. Integrity compliance, then once you get your data back, does all of these conditions and analysis related to that so you can decide which anomalies you need to action. And since we've load repair data at the end of this process, you'll know which ones you've already repaired as part of that analysis. So you're only picking ones that haven't been mitigated. Then it create a dig plan. We have a dig management module that we can go create the whole plan, best in class, kind of across all of our customers, a dig sheet that's been vetted with a lot of customers. You send that out to the field. We have the capability to then bring that data back in. We have some customers that have iPads or services out in the field, and they're bringing that data through an API. Some still bringing it in through Excel, and then they can monitor it. That's really end-to-end enterprise-wide, kind of the whole life cycle of integrity management. What we're working on right now is basically bringing in, embedding in CFR technologies. So this organization is a Canadian organization out of Alberta. They've been in the industry for 25, 30 years. They've built probabilistic risk models that handle the B31.8S threats. We're embedding those probabilistic risk models into the solution. So not only now will you be able to drop your data in, you'll be able to not hit, just your 192, 195, your growth, but you'll also be able to select all 9 threat conditions and run it all in one shot. So you can actually start moving more into that kind of performance based when you're ready to do it. That's super. We have a private preview that's in process now. We have 4 operators now working with us on those models. We have 2 of the models done, working on the rest. And our objective there is to kind of get end of year to have all 9 models up and running. And then we'll start kind of into Q1, starting to bring customers into the solution related to that. The other area that we're really focused on is corrosion management. Hyper focused right now. We have a private preview going on internal corrosion. So that's where we're going to start bringing in chemical sampling, maintenance pigging, and really start to help operators understand what is my chemical, is my chemical program working? Am I putting too much in? What's my spend related to pigging? All of that type metrics. So we have operators helping us understand what those cost metrics, kind of like you saw that cost savings bucket. We're going to have buckets related to your chemical program and your maintenance pigging. So you can kind of get dashboard analytics on that. And again, since it's a SaaS solution, all you need is a browser. So anybody in the organization that's out in the field will be able to see what's going on. Those are the 2 main things that we're working on right now.
Great. I don't have any other questions in the chat at this point in time. We will be sending, for those that were attending, some more information on the analytics capabilities of follow-up, along with just a little bit more information about this. So I'd like to thank you, Brandon, for participating, and Haney, thanks again. Please fill out our survey. So the survey will be coming up here soon, just to let us know what you think. Our next event that we'll be having, we'll be sending out some information. This is a monthly reoccurring energy series. So the next one coming up, we're going to be focused on a